let's talk a little bit about after you bake a piece, finishing a piece, because we're not going to see that on this class, but let's talk a bit about it. The baking itself of super sculpting, Jared and I like to bake it at a really low temperature, lower than is on the box, than is as directed. We like to go, Jared, like what, 220?
Right, about 220, 230. The box is going to say 275, but I honestly think that's intended for jewelry type situations.
People are doing little knickknacks and
Yeah,
such.
yeah.
For our stuff, we like to go lower and for a little bit longer, usually probably than the box says. Lower temperature and longer. Then, and this is so key, when this stuff hardens while it's cooling down, and you don't want to touch it while it's in the oven. You just want to turn off the oven and let it cool down on its own for, if you can, for 5 or 6 hours, overnight even. Don't touch it. Don't even poke in there and rattle the rack or poke it with a tool. Just leave it alone and put it out of your mind. So 6 hours later, when you pull it out, it's the curing and the baking is hopefully done. And then you can get to work. And then
And yeah, we need to get a little bit on the back of that cranium, but he is going to have a helmet on, so I guess that's why we haven't paid that much attention to him.
yeah, we love this Super Sculpey firm, this gray color. Super Sculpey, regular Super Sculpey used to come in a pink color, and it had a translucent quality to it. You could lose imperfections or nicks in the surface of it and not see those again until you bake the piece. This gray color is more opaque.
Definitely. Like a good example is if you got like a cat hair or a dog hair and you put it on the pink Sculpey, you could kind of mush it in and push Sculpey over it, but you could still kind of see it even though it's buried in the Sculpey. And that's how you know it's kind of microscopically translucent. So you can imagine all the little surface details that are on there that you're not really seeing because it's kind of hard to focus on. So the color, just a good neutral gray, it just allows you to see the depth and the mass of the piece easier.
Here you're working on the face a little bit. Faces are a lot more 3D than people think a lot of the times, I think.
Yeah, if you're ever going to do a likeness, and we try to steer way clear of likenesses.
We avoid those like the plague.
But if you were to do a likeness, you've just got to have a good profile shot of whoever it is. If it's Sean Connery or whoever, it's crucial to have a profile shot. He's going to get another ear here in a second, I feel positive. In some circumstances, we might make the whole axe head out of Bondo. Because once you primer it and then paint it, it'll all look very much the same.
Here you're laying on that forearm, and man, you're really going to town with that super glue.
You got to. You really have to. And that's probably the final clip on that right hand. I know where I want the fist to end. Well, it might get clipped again.
Now here, you're scraping off some Super Sculpey
To get back down to the Bondo.
to get to the Bondo skull, to apply these horns, these Bondo horns, to the Bondo skull. The soft Bondo horns, what you just rolled up, to the hard Bondo skull, so they stick on there. And these are some, totally Frazetta, Death Dealer type, downward pointing horns.
Total Frazetta rip. And if these horns were any bigger, I would want them to have a little bit of armature underneath them, either almalloy or floral wire. But at this size, they'll be all right. Like if there was a long cape coming off the back, that's where you want to have that wire underneath there, because the Bondo could just snap or crack. It's pretty tough, but if you started elongating it out, you would want to have something underneath it. And here I'm just digging out a little bit of the clay.
You're going to add some of the base structure, some of the armature for fur and a cape type thing flying off his back.
Kind of a cape fur.
Right. So you're taking the floral wire, attaching it to the armature with the Bondo, and this will hold up some of the fur cape. And as I say, Jared will avoid working on the legs.
Oh, to
just
the very end.
As long as possible. Not something he is wildly interested in.
Who wants to work on the legs?
And this is a little bit of Bondo. That was a little bit of Bondo to form the fist. A base for the fist to sculpt the bulk of the hand around.
Right, the head and the hands. You want to have something, a little base to work on. Again, I don't want it to move around as I'm going to work on it.
You can see this sort of bifurcation Jared's talking about, a line right down the middle of the body. And here he's working on the hand and the forearm.
And I'm not worried about how wide it is. I'm just trying to get the length right. From the shoulder to the elbow, to the elbow to the wrist. And this might not be a great example because, as Brandon kept telling me, the left arm was way too long. I think he was calling him Stretch Armstrong as we were in the cab.
He was like Plastic Man.
Like, wow.
Like freaking plastic. He was like freaking Reed Richards.
Brandon was telling me the first day, "You're killing it. You're killing it." And then the second day, he was telling me, "You're saving it. You're saving it."
That's right. That's exactly
So I'm not sure
right.
what was going on.
You're laying in these lines you're cutting with the tool are the basic indentions for the muscles.
Right.
Where the leg muscles and the thigh are going to go.
There's that great line from right underneath the hip to the it goes straight down, well, not straight down, but angularly a little bit, and to the inside of the knee. And that gives you kind of an east-west, kind of a longitude line. Just kind of helps me map out the pattern of the muscles.
Just sort of carving in the fingers where they're going to go. Just getting a general sense here.
And again, references the key. Have lots of pictures of legs from different angles.
Oh yeah, our reference the reference we use is incredible. We try to get people in the poses.
Definitely.
We find a person in a magazine, like a muscle magazine or a sporting magazine, doing something similar to the pose, especially if like an arm is in a locked position or in a bent position. You try to find something that looks exactly like that and use it. And occasionally, when we're really desperate for an overall sense, we'll take pictures even of ourselves or someone around us, doing something in a certain position. We've got a lot of sad pictures of ourselves, holding baseball bats and stuff. Yeah.
But this is a good point, and I do this more and more because I'm not in shape. But I will take pictures of myself, and you can just see, hey, the shoulder starts here, it ends here. You end up making up so much less. It comes across so much truer if you start from a real picture.
It's so true, and you don't. We talk about anatomy. It's just not something. Anatomy is not something. Parts of anatomy. It's not something you want to be making up. People can spot that from a mile away. You want it to be as real as possible. And we study, a lot of anatomy books. You've got to, and you've got to have an understanding of how the muscles work under the skin, how they relate to one another. It's critical to this kind of work.
And even stuff like which leg the weight is on. You can look at a picture and say, okay, his foot is underneath his left shoulder and his other foot is over here to the right. All this stuff you can steal from a photograph, and it really gives the piece a much more natural feeling than if you were just kind of winging it and guessing at it. And we all do that at some point. You don't always have the best pictures, the best reference. So much of it is just making it up. But it's good to have the more reference, the better. And we have some old cardboard sheets with tons of muscle things on from way back in the day. Now here we're heat gunning it a little bit. And once we got the angle of the head we wanted, that we thought showed, okay, this is his attitude, this is generally the pose, we'll heat gun it. This locks in the pose, and it makes it really firm. So again, when we're working on it, it doesn't move around, it doesn't wiggle around.
And that's one of the great attributes of this Super Sculpey is you can bake it, and then you can continue to work by this method. Is one of the great things right here. Jared's applying Vaseline or petroleum gelate onto the baked surface, and that allows you to stick new soft Sculpey onto the hard baked Sculpey. And you just put a little bit of petroleum jelly on there. You wipe it away. You can wipe it completely away, and that chemical reaction allows the new soft Sculpey to grip onto it.
And it works on the Bondo too. You could see I was putting a little bit on the white horns, because if you didn't and you went to put Sculpey onto those white horns, man, it wouldn't want to stick at all. It might stick for a second, but it's not really going to stick for very long.
Yeah, it's going to slide around.
So you put a little Vaseline on, and just a little bit goes a long way. And then you can even do your best to wipe it off.
And Jared and I are comic book guys. We come from comic books and fantasy art. Many guys in this industry are inspired by movies. We come from a place of comic books, and so
we wanted to draw the X-Men, I think, and
we were sort of failed comic book artists, I guess. So we turned to sculpting. But so like Frank Frazetta obviously affects everyone in this industry, and he's so important to us and what we do. And we love comic book artists like Simon Bisley and Bill Sienkiewicz and Mobius. And we sort of use that as a sort of artistic shorthand. Our knowledge, I'll say, make it more Sienkiewicz. Jared might say, make his...
And that's tough to do.
Yeah, it is. And make his brow more John Byrne. And so that's very important to us. And when we work on some of these projects, these maybe Marvel Comics projects, we're not just being hired to do a job. I mean, we are into it,
We love the Marvel comics. Not to do a Marvel commercial, but that's just where we grew up with the X-Men and the Thors and all that.
And for, and sculpting wise, we have heroes as well. Not only the old classical guys, Michelangelo,
Bernini.
Yeah, up to Rodin, of course, for us. But nowadays in this industry, in our genre and our scale, we've been so lucky to work with Randy Bowen from Bowen Designs and Claiborne Moore. Both of those guys have been sort of mentors to us and helped us along the way. But we have also heroes. Our heroes are mostly the Japanese guys, Yasushi Nirasawa, Takayuki Takeya. These guys did the book Creature Core. And that was monumental to us. That was a landmark when we saw that. It affected everything we wanted to do.
Huge turning point, really.
Yuji Oniki. And the guys over here that we really, look up to now, as we may have said, Jordu Shell, in movies. And we love the work of Paul Komoda and Simon Lee in the kit industry, more on the horror tip. These are a lot of the guys we look up to and we think are somewhat like-minded.
You might see the X-Acto coming in here and take some stuff off, and that's part of it. You have to be willing to go in there and take out what you don't like. It's not perfect just because it's there. Sometimes we'll get in a thing where, you get it going and you come back into the room later and you feel like, well, it's there. It must be right.
Right. And then you remember, oh, but I put it there.
Right.
So maybe it's not right. And it's a great property of Super Sculpt, like we've been saying with the X-Acto. You can, once you've baked it, you can go in and rework it. You can add to it. You can also take away with the right X-Acto or Dremel or whatever tool you're using.
Over and over. And
so you can dig stuff out, you can cut stuff off, and you can keep working the Super Sculpey. And that's, it's a perfect thing for us. I know a lot of companies, in this industry have gone to wax, or they want you to work in wax, or they want you to work in other Castelline, other things. But for us, we know that just the guys we're just talking about, Takea still uses Super Sculpey. We know that Clay Moore, Randy Bowen, it's what we love. And if it's good enough for those guys, it's good enough for us. And that's, and we really do love it. They should freaking pay us for how much we talk about it.
Yeah, we're doing like a little commercial. But it's just good. Everybody needs to, try their hand at different materials. We've tried Castelline and Plastiline and Chavant. It's good to check out different stuff, and hey, maybe you don't like it, but at least you gave it a shot and you know more about it.
Oh yeah, it's all it's all trial and error with that kind of stuff. Whatever you feel the most comfortable with. I mean, people do badass work in wax, But Jared is a little bit obsessed here with shoulders and chest, and he will continue to work on the upper body, to the exclusion of all else, really.
Well,
you have to be a little bit obsessive, though. You have to want to make it right.
And, a sculpture is something you walk around, and yet the vast majority of people are going to see one picture from one angle. So you do have that money shot. You have the photo angle. And
absolutely. And on this guy, it's not straight on. It's the center of his chest. What we're seeing, this is where he's looking, basically. His head is turned to the right. So our money angle is really closer to that right shoulder. Sort of a 3/4 between the center of his chest and that right shoulder. Sort of in the direction his head is turned. So there's going to be more attention paid to this right shoulder, the right arm, the right rib cage, the right half of the chest, because that is what we consider the angle. The angle we would take a photo of. That's the angle we're doing the most work on it from.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, where the eyes are looking is the front of the piece.
Now, I mean, some traditional style sculptors may kill us for even saying that.
That is
because
true.
It is this idea that a sculpture is something you walk around, but we always think of it as yes, you have to finish it, and it has to look good from every angle, but there's a primary angle. I mean, always when we're working on it, at least in our minds, there has to be. It gives us a focus.
Be remiss not to work on that, the main shot of it the most. That's where 999 people out of 1,000 are going to see just the photo. And don't be afraid to, make changes as you're going. That's the whole process.
You mean like major changes? Like sometimes, we'll grab a guy by his shoulders and by his waist and just crank him and give him a big turn or one way or the other. It's just that exactly is the process.
That's how you can find a great pose sometimes, by just really putting one hand on the top of him, putting the other hand on the bottom of him, and just twist him or turn him or hunch him over.
That's what
lean him back.
That's what we're saying by, that we don't really do sketches. Some guys do, and they're awesome at the sketch, and the sculpture turns out exactly like that.
Right. They know exactly where they're going before they've ever started.
Yeah, it's all planned out. But us, we're constantly trying to make the pose that much better, or make any part of it better. Lean him this way, lean him that way, twist him, pick his arm up, put it back down.
Again, the John Brown DVD I would refer to, the Femme Fatale specifically,
right, from
Gnomon Workshop. He knew exactly where he was going with that.
Yeah, and it's incredible.
And man, it was big. He works in a big scale.
Yeah. Totally. Bigger than I could go.
Yeah.
That's another thing you just have to sort of find your comfort level with. For personal work, I mean, in the statue industry, obviously, there's a sort of standard scale you're going to have to work at.
Generally 1/6.
Right. Something like that. And for our personal work, obviously you could go bigger, just like Jared was talking about that John Brown piece, and all the way down to these guys who do the Warhammer.
Yeah.
The sort of D&D size pieces with huge magnifying glasses attached to their face, which, just no way for us. I mean, I could never go that small, but more power to them when they can, because it's wicked.
Everybody has their comfort zone, definitely. And the cape and the back of it, you know, the more stuff you can add to build up the, like I'm saying, you know, you've got the foreground and you've got the background, just like in a painting or something.
You're sort of adding like a depth of field.
Right.
The axe comes a couple of inches in front of him. You've got some fur flying off in the back.
And then you've got the sword behind the fur.
Because the body is only so thick. So you're adding a depth to the piece.
It's more story. It's
Right.
more information. And just more stuff to look at.
So fractal
patterns. You know, like the veins in a human, or the branches of a tree, or the way lightning goes down, the way a river branches off.
And you're like a past master of how those veins appear and sort of disappear under the skin, where they're going to come back and where they...
Oh, thanks. Well, it's just doing it over and over, reference and repetition. Those are my two R's.
And some of this dark clay...
It's going to be replaced, yeah.
That's going to be replaced with the same color as the rest of the piece. You may see this dark clay coming in. We were having a clay crisis, and we weren't sure we had enough to fill. So sometimes we used this dark clay, which is still super sculpey, just a different, darker color, as sort of a placeholders in some of these spots.
Yeah, it's like we didn't have enough clay. I think Brandon started the armature about a scale too big.
One of us did, that's for sure.
And so then he didn't bring enough clay. And so
let's ask the guys who were filming the piece who started the armature too big.
But it worked out well. David at Noman went and got us some Sculpey from an art store and really saved us there. He saved us a couple of times, but he saved us there for sure.
The sculptor we were talking about, John Brown, who does the Noman DVDs, actually came by this session.
Yeah, it was great.
While we were sculpting this piece. It was awesome. Really cool meeting him.
Yeah, he's worked on so many movies, it like freaked me out. I think I got a little nervous. But yeah, that dark clay I think will be replaced. The boots and
Totally.
all that stuff. It's just kind of placeholders at this point. And again, I mean, not to get mathematical with fractals and stuff, but fur, so much stuff is patterns. Or you can apply patterns to them.
And again, you can see here, it's still, we're using the pushing method. We're just adding pieces and pushing them around with the tool. Adding small pieces on small pieces. Jared says sometimes there's like what do you say? It's like a drip sandcastle,
but horizontally.
Exactly.
I don't know why I like to say that. I think it just it gives people a mental image.
We've come across some people who see us at conventions or shows, who literally think we carve it out of a block of clay, like the old masters at their marble.
That would be way harder.
We're whittling away the negative space.
That would be way harder. I've tried some whittling.
Well, you are from Texas.
It's not for the faint of heart. Because really, this way, we will whittle. We'll get the big number 2 X-Acto round blade, and we'll go in and we'll carve stuff out if we don't like it. And then we'll add some to it again. And that's just one of the miraculous properties of Super Sculpey. You can take and give and give and take. And, you know, if I didn't like this head and I was at home, I might just chop it off and start a whole nother one.
Right.
Nobody would ever know.
I'm surprised you didn't do one of these arms more locked. That's one of your favorite positions.
Right. I thought I was going to take that right arm back a little bit more and turn his head even more to the left.
Yeah.
But I was just real nervous. I was just trying to make something happen. He's going to have a couple of swords.